You can see it from space. Not a battle, not an explosion, a traffic jam. 3,000 vehicles stretching 10 kilometers, all moving in one direction away from Crimea. None going in. That image, captured by Planet Labs satellites on June 24, 2026, tells you more about the state of Russia's control over Crimea than any military briefing could. This is what the collapse of an occupation looks like from orbit. Welcome back. Crimea is the story Russia cannot hide anymore. Not from satellites, not from its own citizens, not from the FSB officers quietly loading their families into cars and leaving the peninsula before something happens that no one in Moscow wants to admit is coming. Let's build the picture from the ground up, because every element of this crisis connects to every other. Start with the fuel. Ukraine's drone campaign has hit Crimea's energy infrastructure so systematically that the peninsula can no longer sustain normal civilian life. Power stations struck, substations destroyed, fuel depots in flames, gas compressor stations offline. Rolling blackouts across Sevastopol, water supply disrupted because pumping stations have no electricity to run. The Russian-installed governor banned civilian gasoline sales entirely. Not rationing banned, fuel for the military only. Every leader available on the peninsula directed towards sustaining Russian military operations rather than the 2 million civilians who live there. That decision tells you exactly how desperate the situation is. A governor who banned civilian fuel sales in June, the beginning of the tourist season, the peak of summer traffic, is not managing a problem. He is triaging a collapse. Now add the bridges. Ukraine's coordinated strike campaign has dismantled every transport route into the peninsula, except one. The railway bridge over the North Crimean Canal destroyed. 11 train routes into Crimea canceled. The Melitopol-Mariupol road corridor repeatedly disrupted. Ferries struck. Naval drones patrol the strait. What remains is the Kerch Bridge. One structure. 12 kilometers of steel and concrete. The single remaining artery connecting 2 million people and an entire Russian military garrison to the mainland. And that artery is now visible from space because it is gridlocked. The 10-kilometer queue in the satellite images begins at the security checkpoint before the bridge and extends past the village of Ivanivka. At its peak on the morning of June 26th, 2,800 vehicles waiting to leave. On the Russian side, the queue to enter Crimea, 0. Not small, 0. Nearly twice as many cars seeking to leave Crimea as to enter it. At the height of summer. That is not a traffic management problem. That is a population trying to leave. CNN reported from Sevastopol that a local resident described drone alerts becoming more regular in recent weeks, several per day, with intercepts now often taking place above the city rather than above the Black Sea. Children's summer camps on the peninsula have suspended admissions until September. Parents understood what that meant. They started leaving too, and Russian authorities are making it worse. Every Ukrainian drone alert triggers an immediate bridge closure while air defense systems activate, and emergency inspections are conducted. During these closures, vehicles continue arriving from the peninsula side. None are allowed to cross. The queue grows. Then the bridge reopens and drivers are told to wait their turn. Military convoys, fuel trucks, civilian cars, and freight vehicles all compete for the same bottleneck, a bridge never designed to be the sole logistics artery for an entire peninsula under active military pressure. Russia's response to this overload, a state of emergency, granting authorities broad powers to restrict civilian movement and prioritize military transportation. The military gets the bridge, civilians wait. Former British Army officer Hamish de Breton-Gordon told the Telegraph directly, "The imposition of a state of emergency for Crimea must be a disaster for Putin. For the first time, government officials have publicly recognized that Crimea is becoming a disaster zone for the Kremlin, an open statement that the only way they can save the peninsula is by imposing what is, in effect, martial law." Now, here's the detail that changes how you should read this entire situation. Ukraine has not destroyed the Kerch Bridge. It can. The military capability is confirmed. Underwater drones, missile systems, Flamingo cruise missiles all have demonstrated the reach and the precision. The bridge supports have already been struck from below. Kyiv could end that structure anytime it issues the order. But Kyiv has not issued that order. Ukrainian military analyst Kirilo Sazonov explained the logic publicly. Ukraine is leaving the bridge open deliberately as an escape route to allow both civilians and Russian military personnel to leave Crimea, avoiding the need to to hunt down Russian soldiers in the mountains and urban areas of the peninsula in what would become a prolonged and costly ground campaign. This is a strategic calculation of considerable sophistication. A destroyed bridge means 2 million civilians stranded without fuel, power, or supply lines, a humanitarian catastrophe that would complicate any future Ukrainian administration of the peninsula and generate enormous international pressure. An open but overwhelmed bridge achieves the same military objective, isolating the garrison from resupply, while creating the conditions for a voluntary Russian withdrawal rather than a siege. Read that again. Ukraine is not failing to destroy the bridge. Ukraine is choosing not to destroy the bridge, because an open bridge that people are fleeing is more strategically valuable than a destroyed bridge that traps everyone inside. And the people most aware of what is coming are the ones with the best intelligence. The partisan network Atesh reported that a growing number of Russian occupation officials and FSB personnel are already evacuating their families and valuables from Crimea. Before June 21st deadlines, rising demand for transport services. When the secret police start leaving, that tells you something about what the secret police know. Zelensky described the operation to CNN as carefully calculated, designed to create the conditions that will force Russia to choose peace, not to liberate Crimea by storm, to make the occupation so expensive, so dangerous, so logistically impossible that Russia faces a choice between staying and losing everything or leaving on terms Ukraine can accept. And consider what Crimea represented when Russia seized it in 2014. Putin made it his personal project. He built the bridge. He built new power plants. He poured billions into making it look like a permanent, flourishing part of Russia, a symbol of what Russian expansion could achieve. He drove across the bridge himself on opening day, on camera, in a truck. That same bridge is now the only exit route from a peninsula the Kremlin has publicly declared a disaster zone. The symbol of conquest has become the symbol of collapse. The traffic jam visible from space is not a side effect of this strategy. It is the strategy made visible. 3,000 vehicles, 10 kilometers, all moving one way. The occupation officials loading their families into cars. The governor banning gasoline for civilians. The bridge still standing, still open because Ukraine wants it that way. And somewhere in that 10-kilometer queue, there are Russian civilians who came to Crimea on holiday, who booked apartments before the fuel ran out and the power went off and the air raid sirens became a daily soundtrack, who strapped industrial fuel cans to their car roofs and improvised dangerous solution just to carry enough gasoline to leave once they were ready. They are sitting in that queue now, hours into the wait, watching military convoys pass them on the priority lane, understanding for the first time what it means to live inside a war zone. Not as a distant news story, but as the person in the car. This is what a peninsula being peacefully emptied looks like from orbit.